I live on the outskirts of this quiet, mid-sized town in the vast expanse of Wyoming. You see, one of the reasons I chose to settle down here is because owning a substantial piece of land isn't as impossible as it might be in more urbanized states. My house is quite modest, a cozy little place that's perfect for living alone and indulging in my love for solitude. But let me take you back in time, around 4 years, to 2019, during the onset of spring. It was a season that typically brings life to the world, but for me, that year would always be associated with an eerie incident. It was a lazy Sunday, and I had the day off from work, which I intended to spend in the most relaxed way possible. My plan? To kick back and watch TV, flipping through channels and drowning in the comfort of my own company. I was unaware of how the day's events would shape my perception of safety in this secluded spot. The weather, however, had different plans for my day of rest. Spring's fickle temperament had conspired to unleash a month of relentless rain. Raindrops incessantly drummed against the windows, adding a soothing soundtrack to my day of lazing about. Time seemed to lose its significance as the TV screen and my cozy sofa became my whole world. Around 6 or 7 in the evening, a knock broke the monotony of the day. It startled me, as unexpected sounds often do when you're in the midst of blissful idleness. I rose from my comfort zone and trudged toward the door, wondering who might be calling at such an hour. The relentless rain outside muffled the knocking, so it barely registered in my consciousness. As I swung the door open, my surprise reached its peak. Instead of the mailman or an acquaintance, I was met with the gaze of a complete stranger. This was unusual, given that my house was situated far off the beaten path. An uninvited guest making their way here without notice was anything but typical. "Can I help you?" I asked, my curiosity mingling with a hint of caution. The guy who stood before me seemed to be in his late 20s, an age at which life's unpredictabilities often come into focus. He began explaining that he had been camping in the nearby woods, but had run into some unspecified trouble. He needed a place to stay for the night. Now, I couldn't deny the sheer remoteness of my location, and if his story checked out, it made sense for him to arrive here. The heavy rain pelting down outside, which showed no signs of letting up, only deepened my sympathy. Still, it was impossible to ignore the potential dangers of inviting a complete stranger into my home. Offering him the chance to use my phone and call for a ride into town, I extended the safer option. Yet, he refused my offer, his gaze unwavering. He uttered that he couldn't stay here, and without another word he turned and walked away, his silhouette growing faint as he vanished into the encroaching darkness. For a few minutes I stood by the open door, watching him traverse the winding dirt road before vanishing into the woods. Strange, I thought, but the mysterious encounter soon slipped to the back of my mind as I returned to my TV program. Hours ticked by, but I lost all track of time. It was late into the night, and the rain outside showed no signs of relenting. Resting on my couch, I suddenly noticed an eerie orange glow casting its sinister light upon my backyard. Rising from my seat, I approached the window to investigate the unsettling illumination. Through the rain-smeared glass, I peered into the darkness, and there it was, a small campfire, flickering like a specter beneath the shadow of a colossal tree. But what truly sent chills down my spine was the silhouette of a man. He stood beside the fire, clutching something in his hands. Was he gazing at my house, or into the inscrutable depths of the woods? I couldn't say. My instincts kicked in, and I drew the curtains closed, blocking out the eerie scene. Fear clenched my heart, and I knew I had to take action. I reached for my phone and dialed the police, informing them of the bizarre situation unfolding outside my home. They assured me they would dispatch an officer, but it would take some time, given my remote location. I glanced at the phone again, realizing I didn't want the stranger lingering near my house for any longer than necessary. With my curtains drawn, I waited and listened to the pouring rain, the minutes dragging on like hours. Suddenly, the tense silence was shattered by the ominous sound of approaching footsteps. The man was returning, his presence more palpable than before. I couldn't sit idly by. I had to make a move, I retrieved a self-defense handgun from my hallway closet, my fingers trembling as they clutched the weapon. I had no choice but to confront this stranger before the situation spiraled into life-or-death territory. As he reached my front door, he knocked with greater force, and the echo of the blows seemed to reverberate through my very soul. Another knock, this time with the rifle's stock, almost shattered the door's panel. With every fiber of my being screaming for action, I fired a shot into the doorframe, the deafening explosion of sound, leaving me temporarily disoriented. But when my hearing gradually returned, there was nothing but the relentless rain, drowning out the man's footsteps, the knocking, and any potential threats. For what felt like an eternity, I remained in tense silence. The minutes crawled, stretching into unbearable stretches of suspense. After what felt like a lifetime, I dared to look through the peephole. The porch stood empty, devoid of the stranger. But what remained were footsteps leading away from my house, disappearing into the night. The police arrived, and the subsequent search uncovered disturbing evidence. A duffel bag was found near the campfire, suggesting it was a well-prepared burglary kit, or even something far more sinister. This bag had been buried, then dug up, presumably with the intent of being used later. It dawned on me that the attacker had planned this, lurking around my home, possibly more than once, waiting for an opportunity. To this day, I reside in the same house, haunted by the fear of that man's return. The enigma surrounding his attack and the reasons behind his obsession with my home remain as chilling as ever.